Everyone's ready? All right, we're on the air, so we'll get started. This is calling to order the regular meeting of the Library Board of Trustees, City of Palm Springs, California, Thursday, June 27th at 3 o'clock. So if we could do a roll call, please.
Okay, Harry Courtwright.
Present.
David Kelly.
Present.
Ed McBride.
Present.
Kathy Warmick.
Present.
And one vacancy. We're all here.
Posting of the agenda.
The agenda was posted on or before June 20th.
Approval of minutes. Anyone have any?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
So, in the second page, which was 10A, the strategic plan implementation, I had a question where it says, I'm quoted here, Treasurer Kelly asked what were the goals of the building committee, what authority they have. One of the other things that I actually mentioned, and I actually went back to the meeting minutes of March 13th, 2019, when we were at the Learning Center in the library, and we were having our telephone conversation with the consultants. And one of the things that I had mentioned in last week's meeting was that I had asked the consultants a question about what was the role of finance people on the building committee. And more specifically, fundraisers. And I went back to the minutes and it said, we do not necessarily want fundraisers on the building committee. The building committee will collaborate with the fundraisers. So I just wanted to just highlight my point that our consultants had advised us that perhaps fundraisers weren't appropriate for the building committee. And if that could be a motion to actually amend the minutes to state that, I would appreciate it.
So would you like to place that into a motion for us?
So you said that at the last meeting, at the May meeting, you talked about that?
Yeah, that I asked the consultants what was their feel about having fundraisers on the building committee.
I move the approval of the minutes with that addition. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good one. Anything else?
Yep.
So that motion was to approve, right? So,
Yeah. Yes.
thank you. Any added starters today to the agenda?
Just report on, if there's a report on Wellwood. I don't know if we have any, since that's still ongoing, as to where that's at.
Do you have any updates?
We don't, I can mention that I didn't put it on the agenda because there's really nothing right now, and I can just mention it during my report. But the information is that they were going to get us plans back in July. So they're working on it right now, and it's the same status as the last month's. So nothing new.
Okay, that's enough.
Okay.
Oh, is that enough, or you want to add more to your report?
No, that's really it. It's just that nothing changed since the last meeting.
Okay.
Just that they're expected to receive their revised plans in July. And so nothing's changed on that.
Any other starters? Okay. Public comments. Mr. Gray? Thank you. Nice to see you. Oh, you're not being nosy. We're glad you're here. Treasurer Kelly, report.
Hi. Okay, so Jeannie was ever so nice as to arrange a meeting with Nancy Pauley, our finance director for the city of Palm Springs. Took us a while to get it, but we did it this morning.
Oh, just in time.
Congratulations.
Just in time.
Better late than never.
Nancy's a really interesting person. She's spent 10 years over in Laguna Beach, and even in the short amount of time that she's been here, it seems that she's been really, she knows that office, she knows those numbers. I think Kathy and I were at the last city council meeting where she actually had to, part of her presentation was trying to get that budget nailed down, and with the options that were being presented, I was very impressed with that. So the issues that we were really concerned with, obviously, were our endowment. So, and two issues in particular. One was the state of interest that we were earning on it, and then really some questions about what was our kind of control issues of it, what could we do with it. So there's some issues that she's going to look into for us. One being whether or not we could actually create our own bank account and have those monies put there and invested at our own will. Her experience in the past has been that the funds are actually invested as part of the city's investment goals, which brought some issues for me about whether or not those monies were being commingled, and whether or not, if we were doing a proper risk assessment, whether or not we were actually putting those funds at risk if we were having them invested along with the rest of the general fund. She was very clear in her thinking about the fact that, as a matter of course, those monies are restricted. And one of the things that she's going to do, as you can, you may not have seen it in prior reports that we've been looking at, financial reports, but she's going to actually put some more language on the report itself when it comes to the money there, to notify us or notify the world that this is restricted funds. Beyond that, we talked also about the $100,000 note that is owed to the trustees by the foundation. And she's going to actually look into it a little bit more herself. I think, because one of the things I pointed out to her is I thought that the note was coming due, so we have some issues about that.
I found out the date. The date is July of 2020.
Right.
So
It's within a
okay.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the other issue was how it was showing up in our accounting. So I think one of the things, and what was just passed out to you a little while ago by Jeannie, was a piece of paper that it says to the left, SunGuard Pent Notation, and to the right it says page 1, statement number 11. And it starts off with cash of $1,992,000. So to be clear, in the past when I've been reporting a number that was above $2 million, that was inclusive of this note, which you see here, the note receivable right below it, which was $100,000. So it's money that's owed to our endowment. The clarification that she's going to be making is that there's been $10,000 paid off of it, so that number will be reduced, but that's going to be the primary change there. So if we were just talking about pure cash, this is a better representation of what's on file. So for the record, that number is $1,992,881.51.
Can I just add a little
Yeah, sure.
extra information on this one? We used to include this balance sheet in your board packets up until about 4 or 5 years ago. And it was so confusing, we just stopped doing it. Everybody said, I don't understand, we don't, this doesn't make any sense to us, and do we need it? And so we just decided not to include this in your packets, because the investments and the numbers is just so unusual to the layperson like me, I'm looking at this going, okay. So we just all agreed as a board not to have that in your packet. I'm more than happy to put this back in your packet if you want to see this form every month.
It makes sense.
Okay.
Seems to me.
I also wanted to add that we had notated the $10,000 payment from the foundation in your expenditure status report. We had created an account called Library Foundation, and it's currently sitting there with a $10,000 balance. And so that was a visual way for you all to see it. But if you get this balance sheet, you're going to see the notes receivable showing 90,000. That'll make more sense. But this Library Foundation account is going to really go away. So on your expenditure status report, that 10,000 will disappear and it will be subtracted from your note.
So a question then,
Uh-huh.
on this balance sheet that David just reviewed with us showing $100,000 notes receivable, if in fact $10,000 has been paid, and we know it has, that 1,992,881, does that reflect that 10,000 or will that increase by 10,000?
That should actually reflect it, I would think.
That's why I don't know how to read this form. But I think your total assets, yeah, I think it will. The cash will go up 10,000, right?
That's what
And
I
then
guess.
your total
Oh,
assets will
well-
essentially
Because
remain the
that 10 is
same.
now in a separate account. It hasn't been.
The only reason why, and I understand that, because you're gonna have to balance the accounts, but the only reason why I'm not certain about that was her assertion that cash is cash.
That's true. She was saying, this is cash, because she was saying, look at the 1,992. If you were to spend the 2 million, you would overspend your actual cash.
Got that. That 21,153 over in the credits column, I mean, I like this form, but I would question, what does that mean? You know, what's in there? Is
Well,
that
you know,
interest or?
that's a really good question, because, I don't know the what
I
the
think that
debits and
it's-
credits on this particular form mean, because those credits over there, I don't know, maybe you can add something to this, Jeannie,
When
but.
I went through this with them years ago, they were telling me that is not real money. Those are expectations of investments, and that was what I was told. So I may be completely wrong, but I believe that is just
Or future bequests.
there. And I think it's the unrealized investments. It's if we settled our accounts today and we closed all of the investments that we had, that would be what we would expect to get from our investments,
Okay.
I think. Now, we don't earn that much a year, so,
That's the meeting that you guys wanted to have, which makes sense.
Right.
So,
and then, David, you learned more about investments too, about the
yeah,
opportunities.
that's what I'm more curious about.
Well, actually, I was looking at the last couple of pages that were part of the package, because one of the things that we looked at in her office was budget versus expenditures, or budget versus year-to-date. And one of the things that, and maybe, I don't know which page it might be on, because I'm looking at just 3 pages of this. One of the things that was kind of instructive was that as far as when you got to the interest for the budget, the interest that was budgeted is less than what's actually paid. Now, she has, so when we were going through a couple of years' worth of documents, and Jeannie was pointing out, well, for example, in 1 year, there was like $8,500 in budgeted interest.
So
One of the
I
things
can
she
explain that.
pointed out immediately was that, well, in the next column, that you had something much more than that. So, and that's the figure she said you should be looking at for interest.
So as an example, so the revenue audit trail, the one with the interest income, the 8,500 is an estimate of what the finance department thinks we're going to earn, and they have to have a number there. And so they just put an estimate, that's the 8,500. We used to estimate 10,000, and then a long time ago, they used to estimate 20,000. And then 1 year we came up short, and they pulled money back. I said, wait, where did that money go? And they said, oh, well, you were short on our estimate. We estimated 20, and it was 11 or something. So this one, the 8,500 that you see as a budgeted item, it's a placeholder, and they estimate how much we're going to earn. So the true dollars so far that we've earned in income, and it's only the first and second quarter that have been recorded, and that's about $10,000. So she said that they're gonna really review all of our interest income. They haven't entered the third quarter at all because they wanted to do some reconciliation and fix this. So our interest income is not true
It's
this
just,
year.
I think the concern I had was that the interest income looks much smaller than it would be if we were doing some short-term CDs.
Right,
And that's really the concern that I had that started this.
right.
Not that we want to do long-term CDs, but we should be doing something where we earn a little more with the money we have.
Yeah. I think that'll be two different issues are going to come out of that. One is what she tells us about our ability to actually have our own bank account, and whether or not if we do have the approval to do that, once we make some kind of evaluation of what we would want to do that's responsible with that money, if it's in a separate bank account, would we do better ourselves, or would we do better leaving it with the city?
Right, and could the city invest it differently than they invest the general fund money? That's the.
And historically, a long time ago, the library trust fund did that. They still kept their money with the city, but they specified their own investments. So
Or I think what we have to think about now would be, we do have a foundation. And the foundation should be working pretty soon on their investment policies and how they're going to invest money that will come in for the building program. We would put some of this money into the building program through the foundation. Would that be an option?
Well,
I'd just be.
that's another.
We could, I
would think that your
I hope I don't
foundation-
go to jail on this, but I mean, would we not have input into how the foundation would do their investments? We could ask them to come and say, this is how we will invest money going forward that comes to us, and could we be a part of that in some way? I don't know.
Do we do that with the Friends?
No, we don't give trust fund to the Friends, but we could give trust fund to the foundation.
and you could give it to the Friends too.
Because we've given them 100,000 already, right? So, I mean, we could give them money and ask how they invest that money for us as well. Am I making sense? I mean,
Well, I guess it's just a philosophy. For me, it's like, to me, the money that the foundation has that was lent to them by the board, in my opinion, ought to go back to the board. But,
well, the only thing I can think of that would persuade me to feel differently is if the foundation comes to us at some point, and let's expect that they will, and they will say that we're kicking off a capital campaign for a new building, and we're asking the trustees to contribute to that from the trust fund. They could very well ask us to do that.
they could, and I really honestly hope, in my opinion, that that this foundation is strong enough that they actually are getting funds from somewhere else other than the endowment.
Well, I think that my experience is they're going to ask for some sort of seed money to go out and start that. And so they could very well ask us, and the Friends, by the way, would you give us some sort of initial endowment to help us go out and raise more money? That's just my experience in working with that. But I shouldn't be speaking for the foundation on that, because that's beyond my pay grade.
I
but-
think that's in advance of where we are. I certainly see some of the trust fund money going to pay bills for the new building, because that's what it was really supposed to have done. So I think that we sort of cross that bridge when we have goals set up
Yeah.
for the foundation.
Well, we're going to hear shortly, about the extension of the consultant's contract and where that money will come from, and that's really geared towards the building program. So, I mean, it's here. It's going to be
Yeah.
here in a few minutes, that kind of request, so. But I applaud you, Dave, for getting to the bottom of this and having that meeting and starting to ask these really important questions, because we need to know these answers.
Yeah, and thank you, Jeannie, for setting up the meeting, because it was a little difficult. I know my schedule wasn't all that easy either, so thanks.
And we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So
Thank
that
you.
concludes the treasurer's report.
Thank you. Thank you.
welcome.
Great report. Someone reporting for the Friends?
I can report. The Friends are having a book sale, or actually their summer sale. It includes all kinds of things, books, DVDs, music CDs. It is Saturday, July 13th, from 10 to 4. Check. Yep, July 13th, 10 to 4. It is going to be in the J.C. Fry building. So that's a good summertime sale. They're actively working on planning Modernism Week ideas and things right now.
I have a question.
Yes.
In the last meeting, did you announce a figure that the Friends were donating to the library this year?
I did not. Don't think I did. No. They,
Is it in the minutes?
no.
No, it wasn't in the minutes.
They have given us over. is it
We did, as a matter of fact, we
200,000
did
this year?
speak about what you had requested this year and what they were going to, I think I remember some sort of conversation about that.
So we did one list to them and they said yes, and then a second list, and I think the total's about $200,000 in gifts. And
But it was
they're-
based on a list of
Of requests, yes, so.
requested items that you
Right.
gave them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was
But that's not been finalized by
25,000.
them yet?
Those two batches were approved. I don't have the exact amounts of the different things, but $25,000 for ebooks, $10,000 for children's books, $20,000 for adult books, some children's chairs, just a variety of things
Mhm.
for the library to help us. And yeah, so that's really good. And then they did get a grant from the Anderson Children's Foundation. Did I mention that last
Yes.
time? For $20,000 and for books for summer reading, and then U.S. Bank gave $5,000 for our performers.
Wonderful.
So the Friends have been very generous with us. We're very happy. That's it for the Friends.
For the foundation, our last meeting was postponed because it was scheduled to be right after a city council meeting from last week. And the majority of the foundation board felt that it would be more prudent to meet after that conversation was held in city council last week. We are still actively recruiting members, and we have people invited to come. So I don't have a current list of foundation board members, but I know that we are actively recruiting still. The last discussion actually at the meeting was to confirm that we changed our bylaws to pretty much have as many board members as we feel we need. There was a limit initially, but that limit has been lifted. All in anticipation of getting everything together to start a capital campaign. So people are being identified that could definitely help us with that, so that we can create subcommittees that would be able to help with fundraising and moving into action around a new building program. I think I reported last time that the subcommittee on events is trying to schedule an event sometime in the fall, a fundraising event. So that discussion, of course, wasn't had this last meeting. So I think we're going to meet again in July. So there'll be more information coming, but pretty much the foundation is waiting until they have a charge of what kind of money we need to raise. But then at the same time, they're getting organized and trying to find new members. Yeah. Any questions for me on that? Okay. Next item is legislative action 10A, J.C. Fry Building. That's you?
Yes. Kathy, you weren't able to do the walkthrough.
No.
Harry, okay, so Harry and I did a walkthrough, and you can jump in anytime. We met with Dawn from Public Works, and then Facilities came over, and we walked through the building and took notes about things that needed to be changed or modified or improved. And then we did a walkthrough of the main library and looked at the potential study space area. And so then Don was going to take it back to Public Works and make a list of, a requirements list of all the different things so that he could at least start the process to see what sort of costs we're talking about. Harry, did you have anything else?
The Fry building needs a total redo.
It needs
The
to be gutted.
bathrooms are gone, walls all have to be replaced. It's really a mess.
Mhm. Air
And the
conditioning,
floors probably too. right?
Floors, everything.
Electrical.
They had a flood, broken pipe, and all the walls, for the most part, are
Paneling.
paneling, and it's all warped, and then underneath is the drywall. It's in terrible shape.
When was the flood?
Mold, and it's pretty
A
awful.
couple of years ago. And so they did remediation and they gutted, they took out the water damage, and so the restroom walls are all just studs.
Right,
Everything's gone.
we've walked, I think,
I did.
you, Ed and I walked through it, and we saw the same
But
things.
we'll get, he'll be reporting back with what it would cost to redo that, as well as the changes that we
Mhm.
talked about.
Yeah, we did talk
And
about a
floor.
couple of changes in the study room area, if we wanted to bump out the wall to make the room more uniform shaped, and maybe, would we
Glass.
need would we need an extra door for that room for safety, or clear-story window on the top, or whatnot, so he's working on that, and it's very exciting.
Did he give a timeline?
Yeah.
No.
So the ultimate goal here is to come back to confirm the funds that we put aside to put into that as well? Is that what that's about?
Mhm.
From-
Yeah.
Yeah,
From the
to
Measure
see if
J?
that's realistic.
Okay.
And then do a request for proposal from the
And that one,
architects.
they said that the local architects could work on. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a small rectangle.
It's not a historic building either.
It is not.
Okay.
One thing we did talk about is the windows that are in it. If you looked at the building, the windows, they're narrow, and they come down part way. They used to actually be glass all the way to the ground. And the door, the entrance, used to have glass all around it, which has now been covered up with wood. And so we asked to have them give a price on what it would be, so that in fact, the
Return
building
it.
would be restored to what it originally looked like from the
Mhm.
outside.
I think it'd look much more attractive
Yes,
and be really
leave
cute.
much more light into it.
It'd be safer too.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a good opportunity.
So what's the plan on following up if you don't hear from them anytime soon? I mean, is this something that we've stated here that this is a priority for us?
Mhm. I'll check in.
Measure J has given us approval to spend the money, so,
Right. I'll check in
okay.
with them. I can
So we'll-
report back.
We'll leave this on the agenda. For everyone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, not on that one.
Any questions for Jeannie, anybody? So, in your packet, per your request, you guys last month asked me to go back to Library Strategies, explain where we were with the strategic plan, and ask them for a proposal on helping us through this next phase of implementation. And so I went back and talked to Sue Hall. Sue Hall has made the attached proposal. She and I have had several follow-up conversations. I don't know if she's had conversations with you, Jeannie, but I've tried to just clarify for my own self for this meeting today on what we're looking at here. And basically, they are proposing a three-man team to come in and help support the building committee. They're willing to help with the identification and selection criteria for building committee members if we haven't done that yet. But primarily, they have proposed being a part of that process to lend the support for a building committee with the decision-making process and just kind of helping them identify what they have to accomplish. And I have shared this with our city council liaisons, both Lisa and Christie, to get their feedback. And their feedback is that they welcome that kind of support because we're all going into an area that a lot of people have not done, and that's build a library. So having some experts come in and at least advise and consult with the building committee is wanted. So I think I'll stop and you guys can ask questions about this. I've let Sue know that we were talking about it today, that I'll come back to her tomorrow with questions that are from you guys so we can further clarify this. I asked her for further clarification on, you may have read that some of their work is around the capital campaign and helping the Friends and the Foundation with their part. So I asked her, anticipating I would get the question, how much would this be split between the Foundation, Friends, and what the trustees would provide for the building committee? So she's come back with an answer on that, and so I do have that. I would say it's probably like about a 85-15% split, where 15% would be to help the Foundation and Friends, 85 for the city. But I've done some estimates. What we have learned from dealing with library strategies, by the way, is that in the past, this group set a budget, and then we further negotiated with them. So we would probably want to do that again, is to identify what you guys feel is a reasonable amount to pay for such a contract, and then we can go back and further negotiate and tweak the agreement with them, so they fully anticipate that. I think that at this point, based on my understanding from the last conversation I had with both Lisa and Christie, they have taken feedback from several of us and also from other city council members. So they kind of have an idea of a list of building committee members that they are just kind of looking at and thinking about. So they're still waiting, and they haven't closed the options down for us making further recommendations. But they're kind of anxious to try to get that committee formed as soon as possible, recognizing that this is going to be a support for them as well. So I think that at this point, this board, our responsibility is coming to where we would fund the consulting arm to support the building committee, because the city doesn't have those funds right now to do that. And that would be our contribution to the building committee at this point. So let me stop there and see if you guys have questions.
The thing that I saw that I thought was missing in this is, I think we need somebody to go through the old proposals and categorize them so we have that information for the building committee in a succinct fashion. That it's something that we actually don't have as a board, and it's been difficult to get, but I would like them to go through what was done and put that together so the committee can see what the costs were, maybe project what those costs are in today's dollars, and what had been looked at. So that, to me, is an important component of the work that I'd like to see somebody do. And I don't know if they have added to their group an architect to look at the sort of the historic components of the existing building in terms of how that impacts that one proposal.
I'm pretty sure they have not done that. So you're interested in adding to their charge, having some of the previous architectural plans, or you're talking about program plans, or both?
I think both. I'd like them to put together what the previous costs and program plans were that didn't go anyplace, but it's at least the history that I think anybody who works on this needs as a piece to go forward.
Well, I will just jump in and say that we were waiting for all of this to get done so that we have the building committee, and then we would present it to the building committee. Hiring a consultant to do that work, they're going to call me and say, do the work and give it to us. So I wouldn't waste your money on paying them.
But they'd at least present it, and that would be a good thing.
Well, let
Okay.
me ask for a point of
Because
clarification.
I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to do the work.
But-
and I'm happy to do it, and that was my plan.
I guess
So,
point of clarification, excuse me, but what I hear, I hear two different things.
Okay,
So I think that if naturally, if we were to hire a consultant or add this to the consulting charge, someone is the owner of all this information so far, and it would be you, right?
Yes,
So you would
yes.
have to say, here's Plan A, here's Plan B, here's Plan C through the years that we've had. You would give to the consultants
Uh-huh.
that would then, according to what I'm hearing from you, they would try to update those programs in terms of this is what it would cost in today's dollars. Is that, am I?
That's exactly what I want.
So that's, we're not asking that you would do that, we would ask that you would say, here are the files, assuming you
You
have
can
those files. I'm looking at you, do you have those files
I'm
organized?
assuming I have, no. I'm assuming I have all the files. I mean, I know for sure I have all of the 2014. And then I found a couple of things from 2005. So those are the two projects
Right,
that
and-
I know of.
And I think it would go more quickly if a consultant put it together and projected that out for the building committee and explained what the previous programs were.
Okay.
I think in
just
particular,
go ahead.
saying, you know, in 2014, it was like $15 million to renovate the building. Didn't include Davis-Bacon wage rates. Well, what would it cost in today's dollar to do that same thing? Would it be 15, or would it be 20 or 25? That's what you're getting at.
That's what I'm getting at, and also
And I think
just to
that's very good.
describe what the program, what the range of the program was that were involved in those dollars. And 2005, I think, is important as well as now, because 2005 had an addition to the building as a component of it,
Yep.
which we probably couldn't do now because it's historic and our preservation people wouldn't
Do it.
allow us to do it. But I do think that it's important to know that information, and anybody who sits on the building committee is going to want that information. So having them present it, even though they asked you to pull it together, they'll still project it out, and they'll still look at the program and say, the program from 2005 is insufficient for a current library for these reasons, or it would have, that's the kind of looking from 1,000 feet, looking down at it, saying, this is the program people were looking at, and we think it has holes, or it would really work in today's world.
Before we get to a motion or some other decision-making on that, I'd like to actually say a couple of things about this, just what I feel is the board's role going forward as far as the building committee is concerned. Because I'm looking forward to really forming this building committee, because it seems pretty clear to me from this proposal that our consultants are chomping at the bit to work with the building committee. And so I think any delay that we have right now in forming this building committee is just not working in our favor. And the other thing I wanted to make a point of is that, I don't anticipate on being on this building committee, but I do anticipate the building committee's results to come to this board. And I do anticipate at that time asking some of the questions that Kathy is raising. What did you do to look at what was done in the past? What assessment did you make about those things vis-a-vis what you're presenting today? And I think at some time in the process of the building committee's meeting, whoever among us, even if it's solely Jeannie, who I suspect is going to want to be on this building committee, would report back to the board on the occasional meetings of this building committee, so that she might want to ask the board at some point, well, this is the way the building committee is steering at some point, this is, how does the board feel about it? I think that would be an appropriate time to say they're missing the boat, or like we need to get steerage back in a different port, whatever. But I think, from everything I'm reading here, starting this building committee, so those discussions about what the building committee needs from the consultants and what the consultants are willing to provide and how we're allocating Jeannie's time, I think those are all issues that will come from the building committee. And I do have one other comment about this proposal. as it relates to step 4, preparing the foundation, but I will hold off on that for the time being.
So may I, because I'm taking notes, just follow up, so make sure I captured your questions, and also, Kathy, I haven't forgotten yours. So, asking the consultants to, first of all, add to their proposal what it would take from their perspective. This would be information for you to determine if we, remember, this is proposal right now, this isn't a final contract, to gather all former building and program proposals and to update a cost to those and what it would look like in today's dollars, so that the building committee would have to start an evaluation of those.
And what the programs were.
Right, I said programs, excuse me. 2, that the building committee, that the consultants would be clear that in helping advise the building committee, that the trustees should be reviewing the progress of the building committee as it goes along, assuming that there are no trustees represented in the building committee to do that. But even if there is, let's say, a chair of that building committee, they're going to be a standing agenda item to come talk to us about what's happening every month. That's what I think you're asking.
Well,
correct?
I'm kind of anticipating, I'm not making a motion about it, but it's,
Not-
I would think that
it's-
would be,
we don't-
it's not being presented to us today, is that, I'm just saying and
No, it's a
giving
good
you
point.
some, my
No,
ideas
it's a
of what
good
I think
point.
should happen.
Making clear that we would hope, or we would require, I can even be firmer than that any ultimate decisions would come to us first before it would go or be finalized by the building committee, to have some input as the trustees. So I think I heard you say that too. I see no reason why
I'm
we
just
put that in
saying
there.
that I don't think that all of those issues have been buttoned down yet. But I was just
I agree.
proposing that, I would like to be kind of hands-off from the building
Sure.
committee. I'd like the building committee to do its work. I'd like the building committee to get some parameters from us about what they expect. But, other than that, I'd like to get reports back from the building committee
Sure.
so that we're,
So here's what I think we also need to do, going back to probably, I think what you started off saying.
and actually, maybe I interrupt you
Sure.
for one second. I think actually this, I wasn't attending this meeting. It was the one that you had with Lisa and Christie. As a special meeting. I think that they felt that before anything got approved by the building committee, it needed to get their input as well, right? So, that might be another layer to this whole process.
City council,
Yes.
yes.
I-
Yeah. So it's my understanding, sometimes this gets like herding cats, but it's my understanding that we as a group should be putting forth what who we recommend should be on that building committee. And I'm funneling that, and copying, of course, Jeannie, but to Lisa and Christie as our city council leads.
Right.
So I think that we still have some time to do that. So as you guys have suggestions, we should be sending them to them. And my understanding from them is that once we've hired the consultants, once they have finalized what they think to be a slate of people to be on that committee, we would be informed of who they would be putting on that committee. That makes sense?
Absolutely makes sense. But I think also you've been discussing with the consultants about what they think what they think the makeup of the building committee should be. So
Not in terms of people, but in terms of
roles.
Correct.
Right. So
Correct.
I suppose I'm assuming that that discussion is going on as you're presenting people, because you may not be presenting to the consultant specific names, but you're saying this role isn't, so far out of the 8 roles that you've identified, we've filled 5 of these so far,
Yeah.
I think.
The consultants really haven't gotten that far yet, because we haven't given them the approval to get that involved in it.
Okay.
So I will tell you that probably some of those conversations are being held anyway. But I think that, the consultants, if they walked in the room and we said, here's our committee, they're not going to say, oh, you didn't include that. I think that they're offering to us that if we need some help with identifying roles and what kind of people we might want or makeup of those people, they're willing to help us
I'm
with.
just suggesting these only because I think at some point when we as a body, or when you as president of this organization actually goes and makes that presentation to the city council or its representatives, that you're going to want to have all that information to
Yep.
say, these are the boxes, this is what we've done with the consultants to fill these boxes, this is why we filled these boxes with these people, and hopefully you'll concur with us.
Yeah.
I
Yes, ma'am.
thought Lisa was going to be here today for this discussion.
I just waved at her. I think that she couldn't make it, nor could Christie today.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that they are starting to think about, because they've been getting the feedback from us. They've been thinking about it. They're, and I'm pretty sure the other city council members have been giving suggestions as well. So I
Yes.
think that they're forming a list, and at some point they're going to have to say, okay, time up. We got to work from this list. So I think if we have any suggestions, we need to probably.
And we
worry
were at the
about it.
last city council meeting where I think Lisa Middleton actually made the point of that she's looking forward to actually working with a building committee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is sort of aside, but I think I got a call, and I think their proposal is the building committee do its work quickly and be completed by October.
Yep.
So I don't know if they've contacted you and talked about it,
I-
but I've
But I
got,
can't tell you what they said. You know, but-
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that
And
too.
they want to move ahead.
I
They
think there's a
wanna
lot of
get this
conversation
resolved.
about, and I think that's because they're thinking of all the people, they're taking input from a lot of people to come up with that final list of who they think should be on the building
and
committee.
I do think they think they're appointing the building committee.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, they
and
are.
They will have to. I mean, they'll give the charge of the building committee, but we'll influence that through all of our documents and our plans. If you'll remember, our strategic plan pretty much said the building committee should do these kinds of things and look this way, and I think that they are using that kind of as a
Well,
foundation.
I would think, based on what I just heard a minute ago, that if we as a body want to really contribute to who those people are going to be on that building committee,
We need
times
to
are
do it
wasted.
today.
It's time for us to start submitting those names to them. So if you have anyone,
Are we submitting names individually, or are we doing it as a group? 'Cause
well,
know-
I tried to, I sent you guys some suggestions and tried to pull some documents together, and I didn't get a response. So I feel this way about it. If you guys feel you have relationships with Lisa and Christie, and you want to say, hey, I think we should do this, I don't think it normally has to come through me. But I would say if you do it quickly. If you want it to come through a single source, happy to do that. I've just tried to give Jeannie the benefit of knowing that I'm having those conversations with Christie and with Lisa, so that she's not caught by surprise if someone walks up to her and says, here's a building committee.
I'm
Right.
more concerned, honestly, that when we get back to the consultants, because I did see your list, and I thank you for spending the time doing it, that those roles, which were kind of really titles of people in the community, right, and representing organizations, may not be the same thing as what I'm thinking that the consultants are thinking of in terms of roles of people that they're anticipating being on this building committee. And I what I'm afraid of is that at some point, people not in this room are going to make some decisions about who's on that committee, and then we're going to have to go back to the consultants who we're the ones dealing with and say, well, this is what we got.
My list came from, because I apologize, you guys were not as part of we had a meeting to start the whole planning process where we had people from the community sitting there. It was the planning committee. And we did a brainstorm of not so much who should be there that day, but what kind of person from the community do we need? For example, foundation people, nonprofit people. So we just did this whole brainstorm for about an
Educators.
hour. And then we started saying, okay, Ed, do you know anyone like, so we just started coming up with names of people. And that's how that list was created for that planning day in January, was people that were invited.
Right.
I felt at least we should look at that list again, because
Right.
those people gave us time, they're interested, they all said we will serve if we are asked. And so that's what I actually said to both Christie and to Lisa. This is a list of people who you were there that day that really were engaged in this process. And I left it there.
Yeah,
I
they
didn't.
have that list.
Yeah, I didn't circle people and say, this is a must-have. I just said, these are people from our community who are as passionate as we all are about a library.
Can I
So-
give a little update? I met with the city manager, and he suggested that I try to get a couple of meetings on the books for Lisa and Christie for the building committee to to calendar them, and then whoever can attend will do that, because they have the most,
Difficult schedules.
thank you,
Yes.
yes.
But
The craziest schedules on earth, and they're very busy people, so we want them at those meetings, and so if we can get a couple of meetings, one in July and one in August maybe, if it works out, that's what I'm trying to do, but
So is this a meeting to talk about the building committee itself?
no, it's
No,
of the
it's
building
It's
committee.
Okay.
of the building.
I
So we're
think-
gonna get something on the calendar first.
Okay, so I'm
And then
curious what the city
plug in the
manager,
I know.
how he feels about this building committee process. I mean, who does he think should be in charge of naming a building committee?
He said to just do it. He said.
What does that mean?
To me.
Just do it?
To
Set
me.
dates.
Just set the dates
With
and
Set the
then,
dates.
Okay.
and work with the council people to
Okay,
get
that's what I was-
to
that's
get
what I
the
was-
committee.
And try and get consistent dates so that you can give
Yes.
people, you
Okay.
give people a
Right.
date every 2 weeks.
The fourth
If-
Monday
if
of the
it's
month or
second,
something like that.
Fourth Tuesday or whatever.
So,
Exactly.
I-
So I'm working on that. I think that's actually an important thing, to get something on the calendar.
Agreed.
And then whoever can
Well-
attend, let's say that, I'm just making up something. So Kathy and Harry are the building committee for the library board. You say, oh, I can't go in August because I've got, something. Ed, can you go in my place? And just have representation of the core group at least, and then decide at the first meeting who needs to go to these meetings. Maybe that's the time.
I think
that
they're
it could happen.
planning, to be honest with you, from the conversation, because I got a call from Christy yesterday, I think they're calling to ask people to be on the committee
They are.
right now.
That's great. That's good.
And
We
that's,
just,
It's gonna
that,
be appointed
that,
real fast.
it's gonna be appointed, and my
Which
guess is that they will, I could be wrong, it might be something that's appointed next week. That's really that's the impression I got.
If that's, that wouldn't surprise me. So I would say, David, if you have suggestions and you haven't shared those with them, it's time to do it.
My main point is that, that when you have your next conversation with the consultants, it's going to be with a building committee probably.
Has been formed.
That's been formed, and anything that they were thinking about doing in terms of suggesting, going back to even my first point about, how they were recommending that fundraising people not be
Yeah,
on this committee.
yeah.
I mean,
But then I
it-
think that our charge to them could be, assuming the building committee is in place, start thinking about your plan on how you'd walk into a room and start helping the building committee move, and how identify priorities and goals and objectives, and they've done that as well too. So we're just probably taking a step away from what they were thinking. They thought they would come in earlier to help us and advise us on who that building committee should be from the community,
And-
but that'll be done. So
I also, I really liked your point about getting reports back here, and the main feeling I would have is that this group should meet before recommendations go to city council on decisions, so that there could be input, especially since it's the foundation's money that would be going into that. So reports back at every meeting, and understanding that members of this board who are not appointed to the building committee might sit in the audience, be able to sit and listen in if they, if so wanted to do that, and that the final recommendations come back here, before they go to city council for input.
Do you have enough, Ed, to?
Does that work?
No, I have enough to ask them to
we can
sharpen this.
Actually get an agreement back at our next meeting.
there-
I have some logistical things to
Okay,
have
so-
notes for you.
But before we close this, we'll come back to your logistics.
No, this is for this.
Okay, so
Yeah,
what is
this
what is yours?
Procurement states that you need to modify this proposal
Correct.
to be more specific, did I send that to you,
No.
Ed? Okay. The cost must be clearly defined and specific with deliverables and a schedule. There needs to be a not-to-exceed amount, all-inclusive total, and the city is not in favor of open-ended travel expenses with a retainer. They need a cap on that. And I am curious, I'm not it seems clear, but I just want to be super clear about the price that they've proposed on page 4 of the package, where it says that their daily rate per consultant would not exceed 20 consultant days. Is that 20 consultants times 3 consultants, or their total amount per day is for 3 consultants? So I'm not sure if that's.
So, let me stop you right there. So, it is
30 or
my
90,000.
opinion and my
That's what I
role
was curious.
here, to remind everyone, is that I'm getting the proposal as, from the consultants on what they would do. So that was what you guys asked me to do. Once we have nailed down a general idea, my plan is to turn it, because remember, the first round, I was on the evaluation
Right,
committee, but the whole negotiation of the contract has to be you and the consultants, because it's a city procurement process. I'm happy to help support that, but my plan was to give you an outline of what the consultants have agreed to do, and then when it comes to the procurement needs, I think
Let them deal with it.
you're gonna have to take it from there, because.
Well, it's actually not as detailed as the last time. It would just be a change order
Sure.
to the existing agreement, and so it wouldn't be the full proposal like we did before,
Okay.
where we had to give them scores and stuff.
And so my direction to Sue was, Sue, the trustees want to say to you that we'd like to engage you to help us with the next phase of this. Here's some of the things that we want to see happen. Once we all agree that this is a scope of work, maybe that's a better choice of words, then it would go to you to
Yeah.
help have them put it in the format that you want.
I'll forward this to you also, because it does say that it is important to note that under no circumstance shall this scope expand or imply any inclusion of actual architects or be somehow construed to mean that architects will be selected via this consultant.
Yeah.
So architects for a new library or renovation, so that wouldn't
But what
be tied
about
into this.
architects to review?
That is
Costs.
probably different. I would say that if they have architects who are consultants, that wouldn't be.
To review costs.
That wouldn't
One
be
of the
the
things,
same thing.
when I look at this, and this, if I'm looking at this, I don't think that this, I would have thought that they would be assisting with the site visits, choosing libraries, and assisting with the development. This looks like this is just the formation of the building committee and not the process of the building committee.
And that is true. I think that this is why we're having this discussion. We definitely can add them, because they would be able to say, we suggest you go to these sites because these libraries are comparable to a Palm Springs community and the program you're looking at. So we definitely can add that and ask them to consult on
I would want to add
that.
that, and I'd want them to work with the building committee and staff on programmatic suggestions for what a new library should include.
Well, I think that would be, I feel like that would be a new architect who would
Not,
do that.
no, I don't think so at all. That's not an
You have to do a
architectural.
building program that says,
Mm-hmm.
what do you want in the building?
And I think that's
Which
something.
we
then
did,
the architect
we did that in
works off that.
2014.
But isn't that, in here, there's established the guiding principles that will define the new library, its architecture, environment, and program.
That's building the program.
Well, it's
But I
included
think
here.
That's expanding this, the scope of their contract to be new areas that are not included. And so then that would be a whole new RFP and a whole new project.
No, I'm just saying it's
So-
like, isn't this already here in this proposal, that there's a discussion about the program of this new library in establishing the guiding principles.
Okay.
I just, to me, the work of the building committee is talking to the community, working on the program that would be required for a new library, and then working on decisions about site. And I guess I don't see much of the work of the building committee in this, in terms of helping them.
I think that it was assumed that in their proposal, working with the building committee, they would form that work plan. So the work plan is, I think what they're talking about when they refer to that is the building committee's work plan.
I think it needs to be clearer.
Well,
in
Kathy,
that-
if they actually establish, if one of their goals is to establish guiding principles, who are they going to present those guiding principles to?
The building committee.
To the building committee, but would the guiding principles be, and this is just me, is it I mean, you've built libraries.
A lot of them.
Are guiding principles enough to set up a program for a new library?
I've never done, in any building I've done, we never did guiding principles. We
Yeah.
developed a building plan that said, here's what we want in the building based on what our community has told us they need. And from that, you give that to the architect, and he starts preliminary.
So
And
where was, so when you said that you gave them what the community says they need, that's what I call guiding principles.
All right,
But to me, that, I'm kind of more in the language that you're in. Guiding principles feel so nebulous to me that it doesn't, I don't think we're getting anything for this.
and we got a lot of that from that all-day meeting.
Yeah,
We heard a lot about what people want in this new library.
But what they haven't, the consultants haven't actually written it down as a guiding principle.
Well,
but I think, maybe I'm wrong, I think they have to go back to, there are a lot of communities where you go back to people individually, like going
Yep.
back to the school children, the kids in middle school, what do you want in a new library? What are you gonna use? High schoolers, Latino
I guess
community.
my point is, let them do their guiding principles, and then we'll say, did you talk to these people? How do you do guiding principles without doing that?
The way I interpret this, and I will ask for further definition of this, but under step one, to me, what they're saying here is that the guiding principles with the critical stakeholders are those things that will guide the building committee through the site selection process and through evaluating the options. And that's with meeting with the city primarily and saying, what does the building committee need to have to make these decisions? And so that they're not off looking at things that the city would say, no, we really can't do that. So that's how I read this first section, but I can ask for further definition.
Yeah.
If it's unclear, we need to have it clearly defined.
Well, maybe present the other issues that Harry and I have raised to them and see if they
Yeah.
think those are included in what they're offering to do, or if that's a
Are the-
additional proposal.
Are the guiding principles really a building plan? Or is it just, we
Further
need a
defined building
children's room?
principles, what does that mean?
Yeah, and we'll
Okay.
ask them if building plan is included in this. I think that's the key question.
Because an architect
Well,
can't
it
design a
says
building
here
until he
in
knows
step
what we want in it.
one, number one, it says, of the guiding principles, meet with the representatives of the city planning department. Isn't that what you just asked, Kathy?
No. City Planning Department isn't, having been on the Planning Commission, I would not be going to the City Planning Department to ask what the new library should be.
And by the way,
Just-
that's just their, I'm sure that they would agree with that. They were just putting down
I
where
mean,
I'd start.
Those are wonderful staff who will have a lot of ideas once the building plan is in place,
Well,
but not.
then maybe the point of looking at this then is to actually revise it the way we want it to look like, so that they know what we want.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if city planning isn't the right language to satisfy you in terms of who they should be talking to, then maybe we should put the right language in there and send it back to them.
I mean, I think it's important to meet with all the stakeholder
stakeholders.
groups and the user groups, so the, current and potential user groups of the library in terms of what they would like.
See, I guess.
That's number three,
yeah.
stakeholders.
I guess maybe I was thinking of something different. So I will stand corrected. To me, what we were asking them to do is to come in and support the building committee itself and all the things that they have to do. Not necessarily do those things for them, but to support them through that by identifying what other communities have to do in this process and helping them identify what they have to do. And the building committee will form its own charge, its own goals, its own objectives once it's established. It's just having a consultant who has worked with other libraries in the country to say, you know, if you're going to, and I'm putting words in their mouths, but the building committee needs to understand that when you do a site selection review, here's the criteria that most libraries use. Providing that kind of documentation and guidance for them. They can take it or leave it, but it's just having that consultative guidance to help them through it.
And then it seems to me like we should have something in there that says that you assist the building committee in developing their work product.
Yeah.
And that isn't there, and I'm just thinking of having run one of these committees where everything was left to the volunteers to do all the writing and everything and production. There may be assistance in developing the work product. There may be some times where people agree on the work product, but the consultants write it up. Those are things that I think aren't clear yet, and it depends on who's on that committee and what kind of time they have, how much they can devote.
And as it's been pointed out, we have to be careful not to get so far out of scope for this that it's not following the scope that will allow for an extension of their contract so that we don't have to go back out to bid for a full contract. Our goal here was to, build on the experience and the expertise they've built with working with us so far. So I think we have to also keep that in mind, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That sounds fine to me. I just feel like there's some holes in it in terms of assisting with work product, assisting them on the steps, what they would have to consider in the steps that they're taking. It feels too loose to me.
Okay. So,
In my opinion, it feels too expensive. So I
well-
feel like that money could be used to do more things that would get us like an architect or a plan or
Well,
rather
I
than-
certainly want to get the
So-
plan, and you hire the architect after you know what you want.
What you want.
But there are a couple of architects we may need. We may need an architect in this that looks at the existing library because it's historic.
Right, but in this, the procurement department is absolutely clear about no architects are to be contacted or engaged during this preliminary strategic planning process.
well,
So I just wanna
I disagree that these
clear.
consultants would play that role. I think that the building committee may, in fact, once they're formed, may decide to go off and do that themselves. I think that we might be putting too much on the shoulder
Well, we have to
of the
leave them some room
consultants.
to procure an architect to help.
Yeah, so I think the building committee is going to, by the way, what could very well come out of this end product is the consultants say, as a building committee, you need to be aware that you're going to have to put resources into hiring architects for the following things as part of your plan. So that could very well be their recommendation that we're paying for. I haven't looked at money from the perspective that it's too expensive because I don't think we've given them enough to tell us this is how much it's going to cost yet.
Okay.
And I would never close the door and say, check, we'll take it. I would negotiate with them much further than a proposal. So I don't want to look at the money at this point until we have them giving us a better idea.
Okay. I also wanted to just throw out an offer to you all that since I will have to compile all that historic information, I'm at a point where I think I can do that now. So do you want me to schedule that for the board meeting in July, or do you want to do something special, or do you want me to take it to the building committee where I have the history of all the renovation ideas and the plans?
I would schedule it for the board, and then as the building committee needs it, it would go to it, but I think it's something we asked for as well.
So that way you can at least get an idea, because like I said, I'm going to have to compile this anyway, and if what I have isn't what you need, if you need some more information like the projections or whatnot, it might be in there, or it might be enough information to get you along where you don't need the extra reports, or maybe you do, but
I think
at least you
they'll
could, at
always
least
need the
initially,
projections.
at least you could initially look at what there is, because at this point, you don't have all the information about all the history of the stuff.
My only concern about that at this particular point is that I would hate for us to say in a public meeting, we're reviewing all of the past proposals for remodeling that current building, and the message be sent out that we're endorsing remodeling the building. I don't want that to go out. I want us to, now, if you're saying that we'll have a special meeting to review what this board has looked at previously, as long as we understand that, I don't want the message going out that we're piling the records together because we want to remodel the building. I want us to look at all these options, because the building committee has to evaluate all the options, right, that are before us.
course,
And there's
yeah.
3 that we know of. There could be 4 or 5, but a year ago we had 0, now we're up to 3, so, but I hope you.
There's a good chance there may be more.
That's what I'm saying, is I just don't, I think that, because, of course, Harry and I, we went through the last proposals. I think that the 2 of you should, by all means, go through and see what those are. Is that better
We
done
got some
in
good
a-
data about what people want.
Would that be
in the
better for you to do
library.
that with David and Kathy and a meeting with them?
I
Instead of
could.
us having a public meeting where we're looking
Yeah,
at
I think
things?
That's a good idea, actually.
Am I making sense? I just don't want the message to go out that, hey, the trustees are not thinking about the land that's been proposed to us downtown or College of the Desert. I just don't want that to occur. Now, if you guys disagree with me, please, you can tell me, no, that's nonsense. I'm happy to say that.
Well, I don't
but-
know that, it's interesting whether that message would go out if the decision as to which choice doesn't rest with the trustees anyway.
Anyway,
Us reviewing what's happened in the
Okay.
past is just history of what past
Okay.
boards have done. And maybe by then, our new member would be here.
Yeah. Okay.
And that would be good.
So do we want to do that as a special meeting where we're going to review, or just add it to the next agenda?
Just do it as a special and allow people to come if they want to.
yeah.
Wait, so I don't think we need a special meeting, because a special meeting is public too. So are you, just do it during our regular meeting, or you're saying just
Just
invite
do
the
it
only
as- do
trustees?
it
The 2 trustees?
An hour in advance of our regular meeting, and if people wish to come, they can.
Yeah, it's still, it's a special meeting.
It's like an executive session where it's like closed or?
No.
It'll be
Mhm.
open, but
It's
it's
special.
just,
It's still a special meeting.
So why don't you just do it at your normal time at 3?
Well, if there's only, are you trying to get more input than just you and me, or?
oh, well, I don't know, if the 2 of you don't need to go back to 2005 and look at what was done. I just thought it would be useful to know that the information's compiled. If somebody from the new building committee asks one of us, we would have information.
To give.
We would have information to give, and we would be knowledgeable. That's really what I'm looking at, not,
So if there were 2 board members present in your office, that's not a
Mhm.
violation of the Brown Act.
That's an ad hoc meeting, and that's not, no, we would just be having a
But
meeting.
there will be third
Just a,
board members soon who also will need this information. Oh, there's Lisa.
yes. And then that would be a serial meeting, and so then that would be a violation if we covered. Well, not if you're not, well, it's historical
I think it's just, I
education.
think we just
Hello,
present it
come in.
as historical
Come join us.
information, and we have that much of that information in
Okay,
hand.
so then I would suggest then at the next meeting on the agenda that you prepare a presentation of previous proposals that have been presented to us dating back to 2005.
Mhm.
as kind of, this is an information educational process. I've gathered the files, they're ready for the building committee, so that the trustees understand that this is what has come before you before.
Yeah.
This is in our
Yeah, all we're doing
archive,
is
and
looking at
I think then if,
We're not making any suggestions, we're only looking at it.
no
Yeah, it's just a
endorsements, no
historical-
suggestions, it's historical review, and then if someone wants more information, at least we know that it's ready to go, it's organized.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Just at the regular meeting in July.
Okay.
That's
Mr.
perfect for me.
President of the Board, would you recognize who's joined us, please, for the public?
Well, I think you just did, didn't you?
No, I didn't give her name and who she is.
Welcome, Councilman Middleton.
If you don't mind, it's a pretty crazy schedule
I,
right now, but I did wanted to get in, and Councilmember Holstage also wanted to be here and just could not be. So what I wanted to report to the trustees is just a little bit of an update, as well as answer any questions regarding the information that was presented at the last city council meeting regarding the offer of a settlement that we have received from Grit Development. And so the first thing, and I think it was fairly clear in both the presentation at City Council and in the media reports, this is a offer that has been given to us. City Council has not acted on that whatsoever, other than to make it available to the public as to what we have. We are certainly very seriously considering this. We received this offer on at our June 5th City Council meeting in closed session. It is a matter of litigation, and Council made a decision at that meeting that this was a serious offer and one that should be reviewed, and we wanted, at the very first opportunity, to get it out to the public so that the public could start to respond. It includes a parcel of land in the downtown area that could be given to the city and be used for a library. There, however, are also conversations that have taken place with leadership at the College of the Desert, and that remains a very viable option as well. Clearly, I think until we make a decision that we're building a new library, we have to also consider that rehabilitation of the existing facility is also an option. Something else may emerge, but I think we are very likely to choose one of those three options. Ultimately, it's City Council that has to make a decision as to where we're going to spend the money that it's going to take. What I have been pleased by is some of the reactions that we have seen to the possibility of having a new library, and one that would be a significant improvement in terms of size and capacity to what we have now. I think if we go back to the strategic planning session that was held earlier this year, there was a lot of conversation from a number of people regarding the potential for something to happen. So I think with this offer from Grit, we're no longer in a situation where it's, well, maybe we could do something downtown. I think now one could very clearly draw a line and say, well, here are the kinds of events that can take place that would cause us to go there. if in fact that turns out to be something that council makes a decision, that's what we want to do, and we're going to make that decision based on the kind of input that we receive from the Library Board of Trustees, from the Building Committee, what is going on with the Building Committee is Councilmember Holstage and I have put together a list of names that we believe would be the right individuals for that committee, some very broad-based, clearly including at least 2 individuals from the Board of Trustees. I don't want to give out that list of names because what we're doing right now is making contact with each one of those individuals to determine whether or not they would accept an appointment to that committee. And once we have made all of those phone calls, we will finalize our recommended list, and that will be a part of the staff report that will be presented as a consent item for the July 10 City Council meeting. So when that report comes out, in anticipation of the July 10 meeting, it will be clear to everyone. If I am very welcoming of any contact from any of you regarding people you believe would be really appropriate. So please feel welcome, even though we have a tentative list to get in touch either by email or by phone call to me or Councilmember Holstage or both of us and say, I think so-and-so or so list of so-and-sos would be appropriate individuals. And with that, the last thing I want to say is something I said from the dais at the last City Council meeting. Every option remains on the table. We have not made a decision that we want to do this or want to do that. Lots of people are excited about different kinds of concepts. So I think it would be unrealistic to believe that no one has sat back in their easy chair and said, gee, I think this would be a great way to go. But that conversation has not translated into this is something that clearly the City Council wants to do. And one of the things we're going to be asking the Building Committee to do is to move very quickly with a evaluation of all of the options. If they come to we think Plan A or Plan B is the best direction, we certainly will be welcome to hear that. But what will be most critical is what are the pluses, the minuses of each one of the options so that City Council is in a position to really make an informed decision as to which direction we should go. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple. Is there a timeline associated with decisions on, I'm assuming the existing building, there's not a timeline other than it sinks. But with the other 2 options, with the College of the Desert and with Grit, is there a timeline they have given you where they need decisions?
They have not given us a timeline. The City Council at the last City Council meeting indicated that we would like to act on this offer from Grit one way or another before the conclusion of this City Council. And those terms will conclude in the first meeting in December. And so we're going to ask the building committee to do everything that they can so as to be able to tee up this portion of the decision making during the term of this city council. So that's going to be a very quick turnaround.
And Lisa, I'm sorry, City Councilor Middleton, I'm used to more informality with you.
So am I. So please don't worry.
So in terms of the evaluation of the options, I'm assuming you're going to be asking the building committee to look at parking, cost, attractive, ability to put an appropriate program into the facility, and also accessibility to the user group. So would those be kind of the big general?
Those would be, and I can say that we would greatly appreciate your recommended laundry list of things that the building committee should be evaluating. That would be anything that you can provide to us in the next week on that would be very, very helpful. We are just starting that drafting process right now, and we don't want to forget something.
So, you mentioned that very shortly that you'll be coming up with a list of names for this building committee. And one of the things that we've been doing is discussing with consultants about the membership of this building committee. So I'm certain if we provided you with something that had been conclusive from them at this point, that you'd be willing to look at that.
Absolutely.
But in absence of that at this point, and since phone calls have actually been made to some people, I'm sorry, I'll try to speak in a little bit more. In absence of that, and considering that more people, some people have already been telephoned, maybe you could actually explain to me what criteria have you been considering for people who are being on this board?
Well, we're trying to have a balanced group of individuals in terms of folks who have had involvement with the library. We are trying to be as gender and ethnically balanced as we can. Individuals who have had experience with construction of libraries, fundraising experience, connections within the Palm Springs community, most particularly back to community groups, so that we have individuals from who are familiar with our educational institutions, our community groups, and so that it is truly a cross-section of people from throughout the community. The business community we would like to see represented as well. Then the consultant from the strategic planning group, we would like to be involved in this, and staff, clearly Jeannie as the librarian, and then also we will be reaching out to Marcus Fuller, the assistant city manager and engineer, as well as Flynn Fagg, who is planning director. So we want individuals who have construction and building experience. We will also be looking at individuals who are a part of the planning commission and have those experiences.
So that's a lot of people. So I'm anticipating that probably once you form this large group of people, that you'll probably want to create subcommittees.
That has not come up, and I'm going to defer answering that question until we bring together that group and get some thought from them. If you have a opinion one way or another as to whether subcommittees would be appropriate.
I guess the next question as a follow-up would be, how many people are you anticipating being on this committee?
Right now, we've got, not counting the ex officio folks, about 10.
Mm-hmm. And have you set an upward limit?
Have not.
Okay. My other question had to do with because we had a discussion earlier this afternoon about what we would expect the interaction between the building committee and this body, the Board of Trustees. So there was some interest about having certainly some reporting coming back to this Board of Trustees. Also, there was some interest in attendance, whether it's public attendance or just attendance by any members who are not officially on that board of that you're talking about. So I don't know if you've envisioned how public the meetings of this
I think those will
building
be
committee
should be public meetings, and I see absolutely that. I would envision a collaborative relationship between the trustees and the building committee.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks.
And I just had reported before you got here that I had reached out to your assistant to try to schedule, to at least get something on a calendar, because I know your schedules are so far in advance that it's really difficult to get on the calendar. So
It's
that's
we're going to have
a step too.
Scheduling is going to be an incredible challenge, and I know with a committee as large as what we have, it is simply unlikely that every individual will make every meeting, but we'll try to compact it as much as we can so that the people can be present. But yeah.
And Kathy had suggested too, it would be the ideal situation if maybe the meeting was the same day of the month, kind of whatever Monday or whatever Thursday, whatever day of the week, or something that's consistently on the schedule.
I would agree. Have not gotten to that point right now. It's just trying to get the people together, and Councilmember Holstage and I want to be available and a part of the committee as well.
And I'm happy to help too with whatever
Great.
you need, if it's going through the schedule or reaching out to people or coordinating some of that. Just give me a call, or we can talk about some of that stuff too.
So, Councilmember Middleton, we have been having a discussion about trying to finalize some requirements for the consultant for Sioux Hall. And so let me let you know that at this point, I've got feedback from the trustees. I don't know if we're finished, but we have a couple more things. I'm going to meet with the consultants tomorrow to give them that feedback so they can
Okay.
further shape their proposed scope. And our plan was to, I'll of course share that with the group to make sure I captured it, but then to hand it over to Jeannie as part of the procurement process to extend that
Great.
contract. Happy to let you look at that as well too in that process, but at some point we'll hand that proposal over. We do know the consultants are interested. They've identified resources to help us. I think we just gotta sharpen up their proposal so that we all feel it's what the building committee can use. Is that fair enough, everyone?
Yeah, one question for you is, should we, in this extension, extend their contract to take the building committee through the tasks that you want it to undertake by October, which is evaluating the 3 sites against various criteria? And would that be helpful so that they work on program, some sense of cost? So that's my question. The proposal in front of us is a little generic and general, and should we sharpen it so that it matches what you want?
I don't want to dictate that decision to you. I certainly think that would be very helpful, but I believe that should be your decision, not mine, as to how you approach that. So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
I'm,
Walked in the
I'm
door at the
really
right time.
excited about the potential that we have here. This is, we've been waiting a really long time to try to see if we can move forward with something, and hopefully the stars are starting to align where that can happen. And so this is a great time to be a part of this board, and I am really thrilled that we have the people that we have here to help us through this.
I mean, a year ago, we were sitting here, we had nothing on the table as options.
Yeah.
Now we're sitting here with at least three.
Mhm.
The Measure J, David is in the room, the Measure J proposal to, start giving us funding for it, and how we're moving forward is even more encouraging. So I think that you're right. I think the stars are aligning.
Yep.
Okay.
Feels
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, getting back to our discussion now. Is there anything about what we've discussed that you guys want to go back and change for the consultants, or is there something now you definitely want to add to this list?
I think I would add to the list to assist the building committee in meeting the goals, the October date, the goals of evaluating 3 potential sites against program. I'll throw out some things and people want to give me more. Program costs, parking, accessibility for user groups.
I'm writing as fast as I can. So support the best options
And
for site,
for
program.
site,
3 people taking notes, they want to get.
site,
And it's on
program,
TV.
parking availability.
You're running out of paper, Jeannie.
I did. Lisa's got the.
She's got an extra sheet.
Thank you.
Parking,
It's fine.
Accessibility.
within program is adequate meeting rooms, and accessibility user groups, I guess pedestrian or appropriate location in the city.
Yeah, you had mentioned,
Accessibility.
oops, you had
Accessibility.
mentioned accessibility to user groups, basically.
Accessibility to user groups is-
Neighborhood accessibility.
And-
That's
and-
key.
And this needs to be probably in a finalized recommendation by October 2019 if the city council wants to make this recommendation by the end of their terms, which was December. I mean, that still scares me.
Yeah.
But I think that it's a lot of work to be done very quickly.
Yep.
Okay. So what I would like to do with the approval of this board is I'm going to meet with Sue tomorrow. I'm going to share with her these thoughts. I know she'll probably want to put it together, have me look at it. I'll look at it to make sure I've captured, that I'm going to share with all of you, so that we can kind of make sure I've addressed and covered everything you want. It may be a quick turnaround though, so as soon as you get it, we need to get it back to her so that then we can go to the procurement process and make sure it
And
makes that check next, because that's really important.
Share with her also the requirements from the procurement process
I
in
will.
terms of.
And they've been through it already, so they know.
So they know what it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
They've been probably through it in many cities.
Yeah. Is any other discussion on this item?
It's a lot of discussion on this.
But it's
item.
exciting. It's a great discussion. The next item, I think we've kind of beat to death too, unless there's other comments, but it's the library building committee, which we've been talking about.
We've covered that.
Yes, I learned new things.
So, Treasurer Kelly, the next item, the library trust fund interest income, was that covered in your report? Anything else you want to add to that?
No.
Can I ask, well, I guess it's not really relevant. I was going to say, going back to the library building committee, are there certain days of the month that are more appealing to you? And I guess it's really dependent upon.
It doesn't depend on us, it's the
Yeah.
committee
Yeah.
Yeah.
and the 2 members from this board that'll be on that committee.
Yeah, I'm excited to get something calendared.
And I think I thank her for putting out, if you have any more ideas, I think you need to get them to her as quickly as possible and to Councilmember Holstich, because they are starting to form that committee, so any ideas? The proposed downtown settlement discussion, did we hear enough
We
from?
just heard that.
We heard all of it.
Okay.
That's good.
It's exciting, I think that would be my only comment, to actually.
I'm sorry I missed it.
It's exciting to have options.
It's on TV,
Yeah.
on YouTube, actually.
And I really think we have to remind, as I said, I mean, this time last year, we had no options, and there was no idea of where money would come from. It was a pipe dream, so here we sit.
The
We've been
only
waiting
interesting
wait.
thing that I would probably raise that came up at that meeting was the city manager talked about the fact that if one of the funding sources was the city bonding with its bonding capacity,
Yeah.
they would only be able to do that with a new building. That
Oh,
was the
okay.
only additional fact that I think I heard in that discussion that is not something that we have heard before. We did.
And not only that, but that there was bonding capacity.
Yes.
That there
Because
is
that was.
First thing, yeah.
Yeah, because that was different, because, even before we had the issue about a new building I think the discussion was that there was no further bonding capacity.
And actually, David raised bonding capacity in that meeting he had with us on the specific plan. He talked about it, but he hadn't talked about whether, he mentioned it, not the dollar amounts, but didn't mention that it was tied to new as opposed to.
buildings.
So
existing.
meaning that a remodel would not be, those funds could not come from a bond. They would have to be
It would
from other
have to be new,
sources.
but that doesn't entirely rule out the existing facility if you were building a new, say, a new wing for that
Or
facility
addition.
or a new building next door for that facility. You still might, I didn't ask that question. I just
Yeah.
assumed that it's still that all three options are still there with that.
Was there any indication in that report on the bonding capacity, how much money, or has that not come up yet?
Did he mention 14 million? I thought he mentioned
He
something.
mentioned a number, and I don't have my notes from it, so I don't
Okay.
want
Do
to.
you-
So they have an idea.
I
They
don't
have an
remember.
idea.
Okay.
I do have a question for Jeannie. Jeannie, with all of this being tossed about in the press and the public, I mean, have you, I don't want to hear what your staff has been discussing about all of it, but I'm kind of interested, have you heard feedback from the public, and what have they been telling you?
A lot of questions. We've been getting a lot of questions, what's happening, or what do you think, or all of that. But we just are we are going to wait and see. We'll do a great job no matter where we're at. That's our stance. I think
Mhm.
that's our official stance, because we'll wait and see what's going to happen, and we'll just do our best no matter where we are. Obviously, I know.
Is your
we could-
staff any more excited? Because they were pretty,
Yeah, I think so. I think-
pretty,
yeah.
not feeling too, like they've gone through this too many times.
It's disheartening when you go through it and it's ready to go, and then you come to a screeching halt and you're like, oh, we were so close. But it's fun to talk about it and to come up, to start thinking of those new things and opportunities of what we could do to make things better.
Is your staff thinking about programs, what you need programmatically in a new building?
Not, well, maybe. I mean, we haven't had a formal discussion about it, but, we're working on the strategic plan. I'm working on the implementation plan, and we're focusing on that. So we're really focusing on just serving everybody right now.
Well, at some point, I know there's going to be a building committee, but I think
Mhm.
if you guys are dreaming as well, that would be
I know
very
for
helpful.
myself, I'm thinking about cultural opportunities and
Mhm.
potential partnerships, and just having a space for our big lecture series. And that came up somehow, somewhere. We had an event. Our community room holds 90 people. We turned away probably 200 people for an event that 300 people were interested in attending, and so it's heartbreaking to have to tell 200 people, we're sorry, you can't come, even though you got here an hour before the program started. And so it's a champagne problem that we're popular and we have great things, and so we love to do fun things, and you should have seen it today, and I'll talk about it in my report. But we've been busy this summer, so had a lot of fun.
We'll keep going for your report.
Okay.
Anyway.
So it is summer reading, and summer reading, it started June 10th and it runs through July 18th. We are only in week 3, so we counted registrations for week 1 and week 2. So total, second weekend, we had over 900 people signed up.
Oh my gosh.
Last
Oh my.
year, total, we had 1,100. So we're gonna break the records this year. And last year was a record breaker. So we've had over 900 people register for summer reading. We, like I mentioned earlier, we, the Friends of the Library, got a grant from the Anderson Children's Foundation for $20,000 to buy books to give away. And I think that's the popularity, is that we're giving away books to kids. And they have a chance to earn, just by showing up at the library for 6 weeks, every week you get a free book. Then if you read 5 books, you could get a free bonus book. And adults can do the program as well, and then we give you a voucher for a book out of the book sale, the Friends book sale. So we've had more adults sign up than kids.
Wonderful.
Yes, that is true. It's unheard of in the library world. So summer reading is crazy, and today we had story time, and the children, I was like, what is going on? The children's room was packed with kids. So it was unbelievable how many kids were there today. And so we're doing a lot. We're making do with our space. Lots of fun going on. Great lectures. We've got a lecture on cutting the cord. So if you're interested in streaming services or cutting your cable, we'll give you an informational lecture this Saturday about that. We did work on our strategic planning implementation timeline. I will just comment that it's difficult to decide, well, I guess it's not difficult where to decide where to begin, but it's hard to not try to squeeze it all into the first 12 months because we want to do it all. And so it's a 3-year plan. So I had to spread it out, and so that's tough. The city council did vote to approve the budget last week. Yay!
And what did we get?
We got a half-time library assistant
Wonderful.
position. And so I'm going to start working on the process to apply to become a passport acceptance facility. And we have to be approved before we can do that. And so then, once we're approved, then we'll hire the person. But that should hopefully happen within a reasonable amount of time. Should be a lot of fun. Then we got to buy a desk, you know. Got to figure out some of those things. But the Palm Springs Public Library was the first public library in America to be a passport acceptance facility. And so it will be a great honor to come back and do that service again for our community. And now that the post office got driven through somebody drove through it with a van, they're closed. They're not doing passports. I don't know if they're reopened yet.
The new sports facility will go where the post office is.
Yes, I will say I love hockey, so that should be.
different.
No, it's not.
Oh, it's a different
It's the
block?
parking.
It's the empty lot
Very,
north of the casino.
Ah,
aha.
That's what
okay.
it's
Oh, so I had assumed it was where the post office, oh, good.
Well, and speaking about.
That's where the hotel's going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Speaking about opportunities and, yeah.
I'm glad the post
Vacant
office
lot.
stays.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of that opportunity, thinking about different locations for a library, if we were to choose the downtown option, talk about a cultural corridor and becoming a part of that and being right near the art museum and the film festival and Modernism Week and the new Agua Caliente Cultural Museum and then this event space and all
And
of
the
those.
Plaza Theater.
On the Plaza Theater, all of those things, it would be the cultural corridor, you know, and we feel like we're a big part of that too. So could be a big opportunity. FYI, the library will be closed July 4th, the main library. Wellwood Murray Memorial Library is open on July 4th. It's open most holidays, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we are doing a fundraiser in July 12th. We are partnering with the Palm Springs Cultural Center to do Grease Sing-Along. And we're going to show the movie Grease, but it's the sing-along version where it has the bouncing ball on the lyrics. I've been to the Hollywood Bowl where they do this. It's so much fun. So this is a little fundraiser for both of us. $10 for adults, $5 for children. You get a little goodie bag with a pom-pom and a comb and a racing flag. And it's a dress up in your 50s best. It's just going to be a great time. And, you know, it's July. They have air conditioning, and it's a great time to go see a movie. So
Are you renting poodle skirts for that?
I own
If you're born in the 50s, what is that? What are you supposed to wear?
I own a poodle skirt that I made
white?
myself.
What bucks?
7 o'clock is when that
Anklets.
starts. And then our summer reading grand finale, we invite everybody to come, especially you all should come if you're available, July 18th at 4:30. We are going to roll out the red carpet and have it'll look like a movie premiere kind of a thing, event, because our summer reading theme is it's showtime at your library. And so we're going to have a celebrity impersonator, Bethany Owen, who will be Joan Rivers. So she's going to ask you who you're wearing on the red carpet. And then later she's going to be Judy Garland, and she's going to sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And we are getting cookies from Sherman's Deli. Sherman's is donating cookies, so we'll serve some cookies afterwards. And this is where we're giving away our grand prizes for summer reading. Sustainability Commission donated bicycles. Friends of the Library donated all the other grand prizes. And then we had merchants, thousands of dollars worth of merchandise. Yeah, your business was a sponsor, 188 Feynman's Lawn. Ding. And we had a full list of sponsors. They've given us gift certificates and kids' meals and coupons, car washes. You wouldn't even believe all the stuff. So we've got a basket full of gift cards, and we give out coupons at the end of our shows. And it's just a wonderful time. Summer reading, not a lot of reading required to participate in summer reading. But we want everybody to come out and see the library and see what we have to offer.
At what time?
This event is at 4:30. We're gonna have a prize drum, and we're hopefully people will win. The winners will be there so that they can get their picture taken with their prize. A lot of fun. That's my report.
What time is your cutting the cord
It's
lecture for the public?
It's on Saturday at 2 o'clock. Our summer reading adult programs are at 2 o'clock. Some are on Wednesdays and some are on Saturdays.
Anything else?
Mm-mm.
Thank you. Trustee comments or requests? Nothing?
Great meeting, exciting things ahead of us.
I agree. Okay, thank you, guys. So this meeting is adjourned at 4:52 p.m.